Welcome to the October 24th regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know when to click onto it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And as always, we start with public audience. So Dr. Rinaldi is going to take the lead tonight. And at 5 minutes, I'll stop you, okay?
Thank you. Recently, the Zoning Commission has been under some pressure to do something about this marijuana problem with the sale of and distribution of marijuana in Simsbury. I think your board will be basically the policy maker of whether we have marijuana in Simsbury or not. I don't think the Zoning Commission is going to decide where to put it, whether they want to put it in the center of town or put it down someplace else. But the question is whether we should sell marijuana in Simsbury. It's a recreational drug. The Zoning Commission made a terrible mistake about 3 or 4 years ago when they decided to grow this stuff in Simsbury. It was under the pretentious thought that it was for medical purposes. Marijuana, there's no medical purpose for marijuana. I know doctors prescribe it for certain conditions, but it has no use. There are 2 uses for medical marijuana. It's different from marijuana that's used for medical purposes. Medical marijuana, there are two drugs that I have here. One is called Epidiolex. It's for use in very rare form of epilepsy. And the other one is Marinol, which is used for nausea, vomiting after chemotherapy, and the anorexia for HIV disease. Those are the only 2 things that it's any use for. But we have developed a society which is irresponsible, it's hedonistic, materialistic, amoral, lawless, litigious, and drug-infested. That's where we are. And we're not going to get any better from what we see that's coming out of our colleges and our public officials. We've become a woke country. I didn't know what woke meant. I had to look it up. I had an old dictionary, an old Merriam dictionary, and I couldn't find anything in it which was woke. So I Googled woke, and I found out there is such a thing as woke, and it's in the new dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary. And it actually comes from the Afro-American studies in the past. It was originated in Harlem in 1937. And what is wokeness? Well, it's become a racial problem. What we describe as woke, which was to help people not become discriminated against, has become a different sort of thing. It's a racial problem that's developed in our country. And it's basically divided us in such a way that we have to start becoming realistic, that we are a one nation. We should have no racial problems. We should all be good citizens, and that we should all make sure that everybody has a peaceful and beneficial happiness in our country. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with marijuana. Marijuana is a controlled substance. If you know anything about the DEA policy on controlled substance, there are 5 schedules, 1 through 5.
30 seconds. So,
I can't go. All I got to say is, before you make your decision, learn something about the difference between marijuana for recreational use, marijuana for medical use, and what's medical marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan? I won't warn you. Just make sure you stick to the 5 minutes.
Do whatever you want.
Thank you.
Joan Coe, 26 Richmond Drive. On September 12th, 2022, a person was arrested for giving a false statement to the police, case number 2200222959. This was noted in the arrest log. However, a month later, the arrest was statutorily sealed and the charge was redacted. On October 2nd, 2022, I requested from the town, under the Freedom of Information Act, the full and complete case file, including the arrest warrant for the false statement. I received an email that they received my request, but to date, there has been no action from the police department. It has been alleged that an officer was dispatched to a call at a residence where he interacted with the persons. After the completion of the call, a person at the residence filed a statement accusing the officer of inappropriate behavior. It is also alleged that Chief Bolter, in reviewing the report, rushed to judgment. After a lengthy investigation and review of the body camera video that the officer had running at the residence, the person was arrested for giving false statement to the police, and the officer's interaction with the residents was, quote, by the book, end quote. The body camera that each police officer has on their body is their insurance policy against all false claims. Since the case is now sealed, I have not had my FOI request fulfilled. I contacted the Freedom of Information officer and was told that much of the file remains public information. I would expect to have my request fulfilled in a timely manner, or I'll file a complaint with the Freedom of Information Commission. Recently, the town was witness to a fiasco in the planning department with the new hire of Director of Community Planning and Development, George McGregor, filing a public meeting notice for a meeting that was improperly noticed with the wrong address. The meeting was canceled, and the cancellation of the meeting was distributed digitally at 4:35 p.m. for a meeting that was to be held at 7 p.m. Not only did the cancellation cause hardship on people who wanted to attend the meeting, but it placed the cannabis moratorium in jeopardy. A special zoning meeting had to be scheduled to continue the moratorium at a later date. The zoning meeting of October 17, 2022 is postponed until November 22, 2022, during the week of Thanksgiving. The Board of Selectmen has had several executive sessions to discuss the performance of the town manager. It appears Town Manager Maria Caprioli's management of the town and her choices for new hires should be scrutinized by the Board of Selectmen. Town Manager Maria Caprioli's choice for Director of Planning and Development should receive a failing grade. Recently, the Recreation Commission held a meeting to discuss extending the placement of lines of pickleball at Simsbury Farms tennis courts. Pickleball is the fastest-growing sport with financial backers starting leagues. Pickleball will probably become an Olympic sport. In response to my phone call to Tom Taberski, Director of Simsbury Culture, Parks, and Recreation Department, stated in the email the discussion from the Recreation Commission, quote, about 7 people on behalf of adding extra lines, and Bill Donahue and Laurie Swanson spoke against. After a lengthy discussion, this is all in quotes, amongst the commission members regarding whether to approve the more pickleball lines, they decided to table it and requested that I survey Park and Rec departments besides those of the surrounding towns which had already done. This survey responses from 35 towns at the moment. Based on the items that come up during discussion, I report that the CIAC has no restrictions on high school athletics playing tennis on multi-line courts. Also, I spoke with representatives of the USTA Connecticut administration, and they haven't had any issue teaching kids on multi-line courts either. Since everyone agrees that pickleball lines are not an issue and Tom Dabrowski cannot rule against his commission, the Board of Selectmen should intervene and require the pickleball lines be painted on the tennis court at Simsbury Farms immediately. This would allow more playing during the day and lights available for evening play, increasing play after working hours. This would increase activity at Simsbury Farms with lights in the evening to reduce vandalism in the area. On November 8th, 2022, Simsbury residents will choose their state representative between Melissa Osborne and David Payne. Melissa Osborne is a self-employed attorney who will not have any conflicts of interest with her votes. Mike Payne is the president of Maine's Rubbish Removal, doing business with many towns, residents, and municipalities, causing many conflicts of interest. And all of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter at Joan Co., and Facebook. Thank you for listening.
Perfectly timed. Thank you.
I try my best.
Very good. Okay, so we don't have any presentations tonight, and we have the first Selectmen's report. So it's like 40 pages now. I just going to apologize for skipping last meeting. I just didn't get to it, so there's a lot in this one. I just wanted to say that the Board of Selectmen sends our condolences to Patrick, who is our SCTV station manager, who recently lost his mom. And I also want to give kudos to Maria, the chief, for lighting up Town Hall blue and putting up the bunting last week. I don't really need to say anything, but everyone, we're devastated about what happened in Bristol. And on behalf of our board, I send sincere condolences to the family and friends of the deceased, to our neighbors in Bristol, to our PD, and to everybody across the state that is kind of impacted by this. Today is Diwali, which is a joyous Indian holiday, and it's celebrated by Hindus worldwide. So I wanted to wish all of our Simsbury residents who observe this a happy Diwali, or as a friend told me, it's called Deepavali for those in and from South India. And this holiday symbolizes the spiritual victory of light over darkness, good over evil, and knowledge over ignorance. And let's hope that these spiritual victories become actual victories given the current state of our country and the world. It's a little editorial there. Cannabis, I want to apologize to the residents for the change in plans. The zoning commission meeting, there was it impacted people who were coming out to voice their concerns, and it was due to an error. So there are some upcoming events, and some of them we'll be voting on later, but anyone can write us letters or emails to tell us their concerns, and it will come to the full board. There is a public hearing scheduled for November 2nd. It's a zoning meeting, and it's going to take up the moratorium extension, but public audience will be welcome there. We have a November 14th Board of Selectmen meeting where residents can always come for public audience. There's also a public hearing on the 21st at the zoning meeting to talk about the text amendment for retail sales, which will discuss the number and proposed location. And then tonight we have a potential agenda item, it wasn't officially added yet, that the Board of Selectmen would hold a public hearing, and we would also welcome input there after we hear through the zoning commission meetings. Not to take away from those, people should go to those. But this will be after the zoning meeting on the 21st. So there'll be more about that later on. And to just go along with that, people should also be aware that there is a work group that will be focusing on prohibiting smoking of all sorts on public property to correspond with whatever happens with cannabis. So there will be regulations on using it on public property. The COVID nonprofit relief program, we funded almost all the programs right now. Hopefully we'll approve a few tonight, and we have one outstanding. I wanted to thank our residents who supported the ARPA funding in the budget for our new police dog, Clifton. I don't know if everybody's met him, but he has a big lug, and he's back from training with Jamie. And he modeled in the senior center fashion show and got rave reviews. And the other thing I feel that was really good timing was he came just in time to go to Bristol and meet with Bristol officers and things like that. So we welcome him to our community, and at 20 months, he's huge, and I think they should have named him Clifford, but. ADU opt-out is scheduled for, come to our board after the correction that was made on the parking piece for 11/14, so that will be on our agenda. I just wanted to talk, the Performing Arts Center is working with the town on plans on how to navigate getting that backstage extension done, which will include the bathrooms, and just to acknowledge it's a public-private partnership. So more to come on that. Waiting for the Latimer Lane bids. Year-end financials I touched on, and then I just wanted to mention that Election Day is November 8th, so please get out and vote, and you can vote absentee and get an absentee ballot application, and a ballot will come to you, and you can drop it in the drop box. So thanks for letting me speak for a little bit longer than usual, and I will turn it over to the town manager, Maria Capriola.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. Good evening, everyone. Sorry, it's just a head cold. It's not COVID.
We trust you.
Sorry, but my voice, I thought I'd take off the mask just to make sure the mics could hear me. So under our coronavirus update, there is just one quick item I would like to bring to the public's attention. You may remember that many of the test kits that we provided during the general distribution events, as well as the test kits that we made available at the library, were the eye health test kits. The FDA has extended the shelf life for those kits. So if you do have those kits at home and there's an expiration date, we have a link here. You can certainly check. And we just want to encourage folks to not necessarily just throw them out because they might say expired, because some of those kits, those dates have been moved forward. And for Selectmen business, we did receive 2 requests for items to add to the agenda. The first is Simsbury Community Media has asked the Board of Selectmen to send correspondence to PURA. They are seeking your support to oppose the state's proposal to require regional consolidation of our local community access stations. PURA is receiving comment on that matter until November 10th. So they are asking again for you to consider that request. You can add that item to your agenda this evening with a 2/3 vote of the body. Also, we have received a request for the Board of Selectmen to discuss scheduling a public hearing to receive comment regarding whether the town should permit or prohibit the retail sale of cannabis within our borders. Again, this is something you can add with a 2/3 vote of the body. We did send out cover memos and some attachments to you all this afternoon, so those were last minute additions. We also provided hard copies at your desk. Should you add those items to your agenda this evening, we will update the packet online tomorrow, so members of the public have access to those materials as well. And one item that's not under Selectmen business, but just a quick reminder for those of you that did sign up for the Parks and Recreation Tour, please remember that's 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and you can meet us here at Town Hall, and we have transportation for that. Under Department News and Notes for Public Works, some really wonderful news for one of our staff members, Jimmy Berg. He has had an incredibly long and dedicated career with us, 41 years of service in our highway department. He started out as a truck driver and worked his way up to a senior crew leader. He is just such a, again, I just can't say enough positive things about Jimmy, just such an incredibly dedicated and hardworking person. And after 41 years, he has decided to retire and spend more time with his wife and family. He has, Tom Roy put together this estimate, and I just thought it would really be fun to share. So we receive about 57 inches of snow per year. So over the course of Jimmy's career, that's equivalent to plowing at least 200 feet of snow. And we are all joking about what is he going to do during that first snowstorm of the year, because he is retiring at the end of this month after 41 years of plowing snow. So we just, again, really want to recognize Jimmy for all of his hard work and just thank him for his service. Another item from Public Works, they were the recipient of the 2022 Connecticut Creative Solution Award. This comes from our Yukon T2 Center, and they were awarded this for their creativity in developing their protocol during the pandemic to ensure that our roads would remain safe and plowed, even during a potential staffing shortage. You may recall that earlier this year, the department was also recognized by the American Public Works Association for this protocol as well. So again, it was just really creative, wonderful work by Tom Roy and his team, and really pleased to announce that they will be receiving that award at a ceremony in November. The Terrafill Trail construction, so this is the long-awaited Terrafill to Bloomfield's path. You may recall we've received over $2 million in grant funding through the Lot Set program. The contractor will be starting work on the Simsbury leg of that trail next week. They will do their best to continue to work on that until the weather needs to stop for the winter season, and we will restart that again in the spring and hope to have that trail completed by September of 2023. And just quickly, really neat statistic to share with our household hazardous waste event that we held on Saturday. We processed 773 cars, which is just remarkable when you think about that amount of potentially hazardous materials that we're keeping out of our waste stream. And 304 of those vehicles were Simsbury residents. So again, just really want to thank Public Works for their effort in coordinating that regional collection. And that concludes my report.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to Selectmen, Liaison, and Subcommittee reports, or anything anyone wants to add. From a Selectmen perspective, we could start. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to bring up?
I don't. The Parks and Rec Board is meeting this Thursday night.
Okay.
Hot topics, I'm sure.
Okay.
Pickleball, as usual, and the rest of them. So tune in.
Okay, Eric?
Right. An update from the Simsbury DEI Council. Their Pathways to Affordable and Inclusive Housing Forum has been rescheduled for Wednesday, November 9th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the library. You can register under events on the library's website. It'll be moderated by George McGregor, our Planning and Community Development Director, and a panel of experts will be discussing housing data as it pertains to Simsbury, obstacles and pathways to developing more affordable and inclusive housing. And this is part of the DEI Council's work stream or work group on inclusive housing. And my hope is that at the end of their process, it will lead to policy recommendations for this group and potentially also for our land use bodies as we think about making Simsbury more affordable and inclusive.
You said that was Thursday?
It is Wednesday, the 9th of November, 6:30.
The 9th of November. Oops. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Amber?
All right, I have several items from the Aging and Disability Commission. Actually, just a little while ago, I think it's still going on, was the sensory-friendly trunk or treat event at Eno Hall that I attended, and Wendy was there also. And it's a great event, and it was nice that they moved it inside this year because the weather did not cooperate. And then last week was the return of the Super Thursday lunch at the Senior Center that I volunteered at, and then the fashion show followed, which was Wendy and Heather modeled for the fashion show. It was the first luncheon event in over 2 years, so it's really nice to have that return since COVID. Fitzgerald's provided the food, which was delicious, and the fashion show was in partnership with the Arc of the Farmington Valley, or FAVAR, and the volunteers modeled clothing from the FAVAR thrift store. So it was a great event. And there are a couple of upcoming events that are crossover with social services in the library that could be of interest. On Thursday, November 3rd, from 1 to 2 p.m. is a program at the Simsbury Public Library, What the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped Can Do for You. And our library will be partnering with this organization. And the Connecticut State Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped is a network library that provides audio and braille formats for free to any Connecticut resident who is unable to read regular print due to visual, reading, or physical disability. So if this is something that you're interested in or impacts your family, please attend that event on November 3rd from 1 to 2 and find out how our library is partnering with this organization to provide materials for people with these issues. Also on Monday, November 7th at noon, the Simsbury Public Library and the Senior Center will be recognizing veterans for their service, bravery, and love of country. Join us as we honor them with lunch and songs of American music by singer Dan Ryler. Food will be provided by the River Ridge at Avon. The event is free. It is held at the Simsbury Public Library Program Room, but you do need to register with either the Senior Center or with the library by November 2nd if you would like to attend.
Thank you. You guys, I was going to make a suggestion. If you want me to push your notices out in the first Selectmen's report, I can put liaison report and your name so that we have, this goes out to a bigger audience.
Yeah. Awesome.
Out of that, what you were saying, all that stuff. How about you?
Just an overall reminder, and we all know it's Halloween coming up, but to be very careful on Monday when everybody's driving around for the kids, right? My annual, please drive slowly in your own neighborhoods and make sure the little ones are safe. And then I do want to thank Representative Hampton and his team. Both Heather and I were invited, as were the rest of the board, to his farewell, and I thought that was particularly classy from a bipartisanship that John made sure, and the invite committee included all of us from a public service standpoint. In this day of divisiveness at the national stage, it's nice that back here we can all go to the same event and honor somebody like John, who spent 20 years serving this community. And we always didn't see eye to eye with John, but that's all right. He always had Simsbury and, of course, his home Terriffill in the best interest. And it was a nice event that was done up there, and I really appreciate being included in it, so thank you.
It was really nice having you guys there, and it was a nice event. That's really
It
nice
was.
of you to say that. I'm sure I really appreciate that.
Hey, John served a lot of years on this board, and we didn't always agree on everything, but he had Simsbury's best interest in mind, so.
It's really nice. Thanks,
He's a good
John.
guy.
Heather?
I don't have anything to add. There was some overlap with Amber with the library, but
You didn't want to talk about the fashion show? No. It was a lot of fun, and
Did that once.
it was a lot of fun.
yeah, next year you guys would have to suit up.
All right, do it.
Okay, so now I'd like to ask for a motion to amend the agenda to add items. We have 2 items. Would you prefer to do them separately, just so I make sure I get an accurate vote on each one? So I'd like a motion to add agenda item E, which is around the SCTV media request.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and I'd like somebody to make a motion to add item F regarding the public hearing on cannabis.
So moved. Oh, you
Second.
did? All right, fine. You can have
Any
it.
more discussion? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so we have items E and F. So now we're moving into selectmen action, and our first item is the tax refunds. And I'm gonna ask for a motion effective today, October 24th, to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $2,894.02, and to authorize town manager Maria Capriola to execute the tax refunds.
With that.
I'll second.
Okay, and any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. The next item are revisions to the personnel policies, which came before the personnel subcommittee. And I'd let Maria weigh in on the need to do this and the kind of logic behind it.
Excuse me, thank you. So this was a project that we had discussed at the personnel subcommittee level because a number of our personnel policies were quite outdated, many of them going back to the 1990s. So we really wanted to tackle sort of the top 5 that we at staff level really felt like touched the largest amount of members of our organization, so those townwide policies. So staff and Attorney Harrington, who's our labor counsel, have been working on potential revisions to our FMLA policy, which is Family Medical Leave Act, our anti-violence policy, our anti-harassment policy, and our drug and alcohol-free workplace policy. We are still working on revisions to our ADA policy and grievance process, as well as our personnel rules and regulations. But those other 4 policies we felt were in substantive good shape, and we brought those to the personnel subcommittee at the October 13th meeting, and the committee did endorse those proposed changes. Under the charter, those organization-wide policies do require approval by the full Board of Selectmen.
Yep. Anybody have anything they want to talk about in here? Are they good with the policies?
Just a quick comment. I am good with these policies. There's a lot of work that went into this, I think, both from the town manager's office side, and I think having Mike Harrington as our labor counsel was particularly advantageous in this case, right? Mike has a lot of experience here, and
Okay.
through our partnership with him, right, we were able to do this for probably far below market rate.
Yes, very much so.
Which is a big piece, so,
Yes, it was very good.
while not a huge amount, but some minor cost savings for the town, which I think are important, and these are good practices. We've heard from many residents and many of us on the board, right, to keep these policies updated. So we're providing a good workforce, so appreciate that it's got done.
Okay. So I'll ask for a motion effective October 24th, 2022, to approve the proposed revisions to the FMLA policy, anti-violence policy, anti-harassment policy, and drug and alcohol-free workplace policy as presented.
That,
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. The next item is the proposed bargaining unit change for certain supervisory positions. So Maria's been working on this for quite a long time, and I will turn the floor over to her to share.
Sure, great, thank you. So board members are most likely familiar with this issue, as it was an issue we had raised during negotiations with our CSCA bargaining groups as far back as 2019. I was concerned under MIRA, which is the Municipal Employee Relations Act, our supervisory positions are not supposed to be in the same bargaining unit with positions that they are responsible for supervising. And we did have a number of positions in the A and P bargaining unit that fell into that category. Typically also for negotiating purposes, you also will have positions with common interest in the same bargaining group. There are also a number of other challenges associated with that. So I really want to thank the current supervisors union stewards. When they took over for leadership for that bargaining unit this spring, they immediately began working on this matter with me and worked with the affected employees on what that transfer of bargaining unit may envision and entail. And so we are proposing to move 6 supervisory positions from the administrative and professional bargaining group to the supervisors union. The affected positions include 5 division heads and 1 of our department heads. Given this change, these positions would now participate in our annual merit-based performance review process that are consistent with our other supervisory positions. 3 of these positions currently technically work a 35-hour work week, but moving into the supervisors group, it would codify their work schedule at 40 hours a week. We also endeavored and did a market analysis to ensure that the pay ranges we would be establishing for them were competitive and fair. Again, we did share this. We provided updates throughout this process to the Personnel Subcommittee, and we have included the draft memorandum of agreement that we would execute with the union should this be approved. Under charter, in addition to job description changes, you all also need to set the pay grades for these positions, and because they're transferring bargaining groups, they would be on a different pay plan. So part of what we are seeking this evening is your approval of moving these folks into the supervisors union. It is also approving their new pay grades and work schedules. It's also allowing us to do the housekeeping updates to the job descriptions, which would essentially be reflecting the new bargaining group as well as their pay grade on this new pay plan that they would be on. And then also just authorization to enter into the agreement with the union.
Any questions? I have a question. I didn't think of it. If we're upgrading job descriptions, so will that end up coming to the Personnel Subcommittee?
It's purely just housekeeping, and
Okay.
and we did include that in the motion, that you would be authorizing to
Okay.
make the housekeeping updates to
Okay.
change the pay grade and the
My
bargaining
bad.
unit, but, and then for the 3 positions that are going from 35 to 40 hours. So it's just those 3 housekeeping changes for those positions.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah,
For
you're welcome.
clarifying that. Okay, so the motion would be effective November 1st, 2022, to approve the proposed change in bargaining unit for the assessor, building official, facility supervisor, golf course superintendent, highway superintendent, and town clerk positions to the supervisor union. Further move to approve the proposed pay grades and work schedules for these positions as presented. Further move to approve housekeeping edits to the job descriptions for these positions to reflect the approved changes. And further move to authorize Town Manager Maria E. Capriola to execute the attached memorandum of agreement.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And we're going to item D, which is the COVID Relief 501c3 nonprofit program. So if it's okay, I'll just talk about this a little. Last meeting, we pushed through 8 nonprofits. In our last meeting, we approved 5 more. I think they're listed in here. Yeah, they should be. And we have 1 outstanding that we're still waiting for some information for. But this go-around, we've approved Promise to Jordan, the Villages for Families and Children, which is affiliated with the Second Chance Shop, the Simsbury Main Street Partnership, Simsbury Meadows Performing Arts Center, and the Simsbury High School Student Parent Teacher Council. So if everything's in the packet, I'm not sure if anyone has questions on these.
I just want to say that because I sit on the Simsbury Celebrates Committee, which is part of the request from Main Street Partnership, that I'm abstaining from that request.
Okay.
If we take a vote on that.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments? I guess we'll vote on passing all 5 applications. You can abstain if you want to abstain.
I guess I can abstain from the whole thing. I just needed to recuse myself from that request.
Okay, and you did recuse on our meeting, and
I did.
we passed it, we moved it forward, so that's.
Without
yeah.
my vote,
Yeah,
yes.
so that was good, thank you. So the motion would be effective October 12th, this is wrong? October 24th. I'll read it.
Can I just ask a question?
Pardon me?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why does Simsbury Celebrates need money? They fundraise annually through letters. So how was the fundraising not happening?
We talked to Tara Wellerup, I believe, they talked about how their mechanism for funding is through donations.
Yeah, through letters that they solicit. They mail people letters and ask for donations.
Yeah, so they still need money to put the event on.
I guess I'm just confused as to how they weren't able to fundraise with letters during COVID.
I don't know.
I think I have a concern about that item. I mean, Simsbury Celebrates is a wonderful community event, but I'm struggling to understand how this funding request connects to COVID hardship, which is, the intent of, I think, how we want to be allocating these dollars.
Is the application should be in the packet, correct? With the justification and the emails that we received when we asked for follow-up.
Yes, Main Street Partnership.
There's also an email thread of comment in here.
It doesn't say why Simsbury Celebrates couldn't, I don't think.
Is the packet of the emails in here too? Okay, so there's a second set, all of the agencies that came through tonight, were ones that we sent back for further questioning. And we had a series that came to the Finance Subcommittee, a packet of emails with the results and the responses. And the group as a whole voted to move them to the board.
Yeah, I guess I'm just confused as to why Main Street is going to use $2,000 of the money they're getting to then turn around and give to another group. Shouldn't Simsbury Celebrates come and ask directly? Like, why is Main Street
Because
asking
they're-
on their behalf?
Well, Simsbury Celebrates isn't a nonprofit.
So we shouldn't be giving them money.
Well, don't they have one line item in our budget of $2,000, right? And the rest is funded by donations and grants. I think they've gone out to the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving to ask for grants to support it and to fund events and things in the
Are they,
Simsbury Celebrates.
are they not financially solvent? Is there more that they need? One, if they're not a 501c3, we shouldn't be giving them money.
They are a 501c3.
Main Street is?
Yes.
Or, excuse me, Simsbury Celebrates is?
No, it's going through Simsbury Main Street.
That means we're giving our money to
We are.
an entity that's not a nonprofit.
Well,
Again, the rules were it had to go to a nonprofit, right?
Simsbury Main Street is a nonprofit. They are taking the funds for Simsbury Celebrate to invest or provide items for Simsbury Celebrate with that money, to offset the donations or lack thereof from the public, of which we've all been asked for money.
Yeah, I'm just back to confused of, again, they send out letters, so how were they not able to do that during COVID? Because people don't donate.
Did you want to
it.
say something, Maria?
Just that ordinarily, with Simsbury Celebrates, the town does collect that money and is the pass-through, so I do believe it's a tax-deductible contribution, but they're not a separate nonprofit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that, but again, it's a letter campaign.
Yes.
We all get emails and letters every year.
Well, if you'd like to vote on each item individually, we can do it that way.
No, I'm just trying to understand, one, how the finance committee is giving money to an organization that's not a nonprofit, and then two, what the need is, because this application doesn't establish the need.
Well, then,
Well, would it be better, Sean, than to unbundle them and then just get, so if I heard your first concern was eligibility based upon tax status and then justification of need, so would it be best just to make sure that we're absolutely 100% correct
Yeah.
on the tax status, and then, so move it to the next meeting, and then not prevent the other 4 from moving forward?
I have no problem giving Main Street the 8,000, it's just, but knowingly, they're gonna then give it to an entity that's not a nonprofit, that doesn't feel like it's within the spirit of what the policy was.
And you don't have the additional documentation, so we can provide that. I'm not sure, it could have been it was in our packet, but it's not in here. Okay, because there was a lot of questions on those, and our board, at least our committee, Heather and I voted to move this forward to the full board. So we can decouple each one and vote on each one at this point in time.
I mean, I
Well,
don't wanna
that-
say no to it, I just, what was
Well-
the information that made you comfortable?
It's not included in the packet, like, we have the information.
Which is okay, I think, for the expediency and the,
So let's just table this one until we get that information, I don't wanna vote it down. I mean, if there's a valid reason for it. I'm not saying no, it's just, it's, they're intentionally gonna pass it through to a non-nonprofit, which was against the rules, from what I thought.
And I would just say that we could follow up, I had heard from people on Simsbury Celebrates that, like Tara is, I'm not sure Tara's role is, but they felt like this was how they normally could potentially get funding through Main Street, which is, like I said, with the Hartford Foundation for Giving, was one of their ways that they got funding for this event for the town. And I would look at Simsbury Celebrates as an event that will bring the whole town together, so any additional funding that goes into that is technically COVID relief for the whole town to come together. So, I mean, you can argue that for the semantics of where the money's going and how it's coming in, and we can table it and get the rest of
I'm
the
not trying to
data.
argue the semantics, it's a fairness issue. We're not letting the Chamber of Commerce apply, but we are letting an entity that doesn't have 501c3 status apply. When the Chamber has 501c, what, 4 or 6 status? They are a not-for-profit. They're just not a 3, they're a 6.
Right.
So it just, I think we need to be careful with approving things outside our policy. I would rather us do something budgetary or through a supplemental and just give it to Main, or give it to Simsbury Celebrates directly if there's a financial need there. If they're in danger of not having the event, then yeah, we should help fund them for sure. But
Okay, so let's
passing it
make-
through an
let's-
entity just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so I'm hearing, change the motion to move.
I think-
Well,
still think we should
I
get
think
the-
we should just do each motion separately.
right, that'll help
That's-
Sean,
that
and
way-
it'll help Amber, let's keep moving.
Yeah, let's go. So move effective October 24th, 2022 to approve funding for Promise to Jordan, received through the nonprofit grant program. Somebody,
So moved?
Second?
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Move effective October 24th to approve funding for the Villages, AKA the Second Chance Shop, for the nonprofit program.
So moved.
A second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Move effective October 24th to approve funding for the Main Street Partnership in the nonprofit grant program as presented. All those, motion?
So I would make a motion to approve the 8,000 for the Main Street funding and table the 2,000 at this point. So I'd move to approve 8,000 for the top portion of the request for Main Street.
Well,
I made a motion. You asked for one, I didn't,
Okay,
I
okay.
didn't make a motion, I made my own.
okay.
So
So-
moved.
Wait, somebody
Well,
needs to
Sean
second
made
the
it, you
motion.
second?
Oh, second, excuse me. That's your- you can't make a motion.
Yes, I can.
No, I'm just.
The 5 of us can. So there's a motion and a
I seconded it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and,
Go ahead.
oh, and any
And
abstentions?
I abstain from the Simsbury Celebrates portion of that motion. I don't know if I can do that, or I can just abstain from the whole thing. and
I
Yeah,
mean,
you
I
can
took the
pass.
main,
Voted on this.
yeah, I mean, I took the thing out of it, but,
Okay, so we'll revisit the 2,000 at our,
yeah, and then I,
provide the detail behind it for
Yes.
you.
Yes.
that is my intent, is not to kill the other 2,000, it's to break it out and
Okay,
deal with it separately.
move effective October 24th to approve funding for the Simsbury Meadows Performing Arts Center through this program as presented.
So moved?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Move effective October 24th to approve funding for the Simsbury High School Parent Teacher Council through the program.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll bring the next one back at the next meeting, and we'll bring, hopefully we have information on the last one.
That was interesting. I never thought about the parent-teacher council suffering the losses. That's,
Well, they did provide a lot of good
no,
information.
No,
I read the packet. It's
Yeah.
I think
definitely
all of
there.
us with high school kids received the communication. And that was the first thing that jumped out at me to say, not only was there a shortfall, but a significant, what caused such a drop-off in donations, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that I think even just talking to Heather was that they help people that maybe couldn't afford certain programs and stuff like that, so.
Oh, for sure,
it was, you know,
absolutely.
I mean, I haven't been in the high school for a while, so I don't know what's going on as much.
That's another, I
I
give you
think
guys.
what that group, the organization does is nowhere near what people might think they do. It's quite different than something from eons ago as far as the advocacy it's done there.
And I applaud the subcommittee's effort for getting the word out there, because that's exactly what we wouldn't necessarily thought of up here, that getting the word out and creating the program, you're helping more folks in the community, so nice job.
Okay, so, now we're on item E. I already forgot we added 2 items. This is the Simsbury Community Media Request. So if you recall, last 2 weeks ago, Patrick and Mark Ornstein came with the Pura request, a docket, which they need public comments for by November 10th, which is why it was added to tonight's budget. They asked us to weigh in, as they were opposed to the statewide consolidation of the community TV, because they feel that would impact the delivery, the transparency, and just the whole focus on Simsbury. They also provided some financial details, which it also asked for. So this is a letter, and the request had come from the president of Simsbury Community Media, and then from Mark and Patrick. So the letter is, hopefully it's drafted, to just state that we're concerned with that state proposal of regionalizing community television, and that we don't think right now that it's changing the structure, requiring the statewide consolidation would be beneficial to the community. So if everyone's in favor, this would be the motion to vote on. It would be effective October 24th, to approve the presented correspondence opposing the state's proposal to require regionalization of local community access stations, and to authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to send the letter on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that will go to the Pura. And then item F is on the public hearing. We've all been talking a lot about cannabis lately, and I'm going to let, Chris wants to weigh in on, his desire
Yeah,
to
thanks.
call for the public audience.
I'll preface it by appreciating, do I need to stand up there and put the clock on for 5
You're
minutes?
already chewing it.
Okay,
already
all
going,
right,
Chris.
okay, yeah. So, I'd want to, I appreciate everybody's willingness to sort of continue this conversation. I think that we're sort of unique every board is unique in the sense that it's comprised of individuals who live and swim in their own individual ecosystem, and sometimes those ecosystems cross over, and there's conversation of thought, and there's sharing of thought, and sometimes there's disparate, and so when the rescheduling occurred a couple days back, I think I experienced an increase in inquiries, if you will, from the folks that I speak with to say, hey, it was less about the loss of the event and more about that change of event brought to their attention that there was a conversation being had in the community. And I said, this conversation's been going on since last November. I said, First Selectman Maxudis has at many times I've heard her talk about this being something that we would be looking at some point in as a town. I know Heather has as well, and maybe it's because Heather and I see each other outside of this board or not, and I know that Sean and I have talked about it, and Eric. So I was sort of, for me, I was thinking, hasn't there been enough of an awareness of a conversation that's taken place. But that's just maybe because I'm in it. I'm living in it, and I'm part of it, and I've been hearing about it. But I think because of the uniqueness of how the last year has occurred with the moratorium being brought last November, and then work being done by the team in the zoning board, good work being done, it sort of it quieted down, if you will. And then all of a sudden, we're at this point where there is this elevation of the topic in the conversation. And I thought that this is sort of came together, and I said, geez, shouldn't we do our level best just to ensure that we use every mechanism that's in our power to encourage folks to come out and make sure that they have their say? Because we all sort of have, we have a bias, I think, of how things should go or how we feel. But that's not really fair at this point. I think we should make sure that every voice is heard on this topic. And it's not to take away from the work or de-emphasize the process as has been set forth to this point with the zoning board. But an example, again, for me was because of the rescheduling, I can't be there on the November 2nd, which, again, to make sure we get full marketing, the November 2nd event that Wendy spoke of earlier is to hear the discussion on the zoning board about the extension of the moratorium. But it's not necessarily a meeting where there'll be a active conversation by that board on the topic. So that will happen on the 21st. There'll be active conversation, which will be likely the first time that many townspeople really hear the sort of the evolution to the point of where the zoning board's thinking is. And I wanted to ensure, just because I saw that there was the loss of this last meeting, and then there's a meeting rescheduling on the 2nd that I myself can't attend, that if we were to put this, because it's such a unique conversation that is yet to take place, in whichever direction it moves in, I just thought it was really falls upon our shoulders as if you so-called the policymakers in this town, to do everything we could to make sure that every voice is heard and every voice has a chance to be heard. And it's not at all to de-emphasize the meetings that the zoning board is having, which I encourage everyone to go to their meeting and our meeting now on the 28th, because there will be probably some different dialogue. And I'll wrap it up with tonight. Dr. Rinaldi spoke tonight. Dr. Rinaldi said something that's going to make me go home and think about this topic or a different topic. Dr. Rinaldi never goes to the zoning boards, okay? So maybe Dr. Rinaldi would miss that conversation. I'm going to be at the Parks and Rec meeting on Thursday night. Sometimes there's people there that I've never seen at any other meetings because they're in the ecosystem of the Rec Commission. So to assume that we're going to hit everybody because they follow a land use board, I don't think that's necessarily a fair statement. This is a critical topic for us, and I don't think I'm out of step with my fellow teammates up here in saying that we want to ensure that everybody has a chance to at least get the opportunity to come to a meeting that may fit with their schedule and how they interact with town hall. So that's kind of where I am on that. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, I was going to just say that, it was interesting what Dr. Rinaldi said, because his assumption that it was just a policy decision, when actually it's really been, currently, it's been going down the land use track. But it is it could be a policy decision, which we learned last week, 2 weeks ago, when Heather had asked to have Bob here to explain the hierarchy and where we could weigh in. So I do think it's not overkill, and I think the more times we have, as Chris has said, touch points to have people come and discuss the items that are on the table, the better off we are, and we'll be able to make the decision. So, anybody else want to weigh in?
Makes sense to me.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so I'm ask for a motion effective tonight, October 24th, 22, to set a public hearing to receive public comment regarding whether the town of Simsbury should permit or prohibit the retail sale of cannabis within its town borders for 6 p.m. on Monday, November 28th, 2022.
So, we should move it.
Second.
Like you should.
Yeah, I'm like,
I want to see.
you want to vote for it? And so, any other discussion? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Question, did somewhere I see that we're going to try to have it at the library?
Yes, it's actually posted in here at the library.
Okay, good. Yeah, the notice, thank
Yeah,
you.
were able to confirm,
In the-
just
right.
given the possible size of the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
To err on the side of caution, we were able to secure a space at the library.
Okay, I knew I'd asked you, and I knew I saw it, but I didn't see it on this page. Now I know. Okay, so,
Wendy, before we
Oh,
move
yeah.
on, can I ask a question on
Yeah.
this topic? Is there a plan to do some kind of a news and announcements communication? I was just going to suggest, if you weren't going to do it already, is to include in that communication sort of all of the ways, like a calendar of ways to participate, just so it's people are seeing holistically that we are creating avenues for people to share their thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa actually has done a really nice job on preparing that piece.
Okay.
It does just what you recommended, and we do plan to release that tomorrow.
Awesome.
Oh, great.
and Melissa, I asked you to make sure that I had the same dates and information in my first selectman report, so we're in line, so it gets out there multiple times. I mean, people may not read mine, they'll read yours or whatever. Okay, so that ends that portion of the meeting. So now we do have a, did we vote? We voted already.
Yeah, no, I was
Thank
just,
you.
I was just sharing
Okay.
advice to bring food because it'll be a long meeting.
Okay, so next up, we have a few appointments, and one is a motion effective October 24th to appoint Carl Testerman as an alternate member of the Conservation Commission Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency to fill a vacancy until January 1st, 2023, and to appoint Caitlin Welsh as an alternate member of the Conservation Commission Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency, that's a mouthful, to fill a vacancy until January 1st, 2026.
So moved.
I'll second.
And there was a tie, goes to the
Amber, can I have it?
runner. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any changes to the minutes of October 12th, which I keep saying was last week? I have one correction in that I did not have a first selectman's report. You could report that, I could say my first selectman's report was that I did not have a report. But I don't think that warrants a vote, just correction on that. And then I did ask Maria to include the Simsbury Board of Ed, the savings initiatives, because I know that people on this board have asked for that in the past, and it was included in the Board of Finance package. So that's
Great.
attacked as a thing. And, okay, so now, I think we're done. We are going to, I'm going to ask to make a motion to move into executive session pursuant to CGS 1-206A to do the town manager's annual performance review, and that will include the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, Maria Capriola.
Move that.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.